I want some of your brown sugar. I want some of your brown sugar.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. This is Brownsugar Commentary, and I'm your girl, Kayla. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more videos about Black entertainment, Black womanhood, and whatever else I feel like talking about this week. All right, let's get right into it. So we are going to be doing a 2-for-1 special for our Insecure Season 5 recap review, because if you guys have noticed, I have not been able to upload the past 2 weeks because I was on a cruise with my lovely mother, and now I'm back and I want to catch up, or I finally caught up on the episodes. Now I can give my thoughts and all that good stuff, but after this week we will go back to our regular once a week or weekly weekly uploads. Okay, so this episode was called Pressure, okay, and it was a Lawrence-centered episode. And we already know Lawrence-centered episode means we're finally going to see what Miss Condolences is up to in these streets, okay? So, and this was interesting also because I feel like we haven't got a Lawrence-centered episode in a cute minute. I feel like season 2 might have been the last time we've seen Lawrence. And there was a Lawrence-centered episode, I believe. I think. Might be wrong, might be right. However, let's get into it. So in this episode, the episode basically picks up where the first episode ended, when Lawrence and Issa broke up. He gets in his car, and then we see that he has moved to San Francisco because, as you guys remember, he took a job in San Francisco right before he found out about Miss Condola and the baby. And he took the job in San Francisco, and it's a very nice job. From what I can see, it is definitely, a far career-wise, Lawrence has been doing so much better than what we've seen in first season. I mean, first season, Lawrence, like I told y'all, was a bum. I mean, plainly put, my boy was a bum. He was not doing good for himself. He was depressed. He wanted to have this app, which I wonder if he's ever going to make that app. Like, I feel like that's a thing and we just kind of abandoned that completely. But, whatever. But, he has this job and he's doing good. He has a loft, okay? The loft is nice. It's very nice. But, he goes on this date with this woman and they're having a good time, and then he gets a text message that his child has been born, meaning that Lawrence missed the birth of his first child, which is just like, yeah, that's crazy. Also, the fact that it was a text message is like, ugh, what's going on there? But it's crazy. It's wild. So he, has to rush to LA now in the middle of this date to go see the baby, of course. He gets there and we see Condola's mother and her mother. I do not know the actress's name, but I know she's one of the 90s girlies. I know her best for Waiting to Exhale, but I don't know her name. I'll probably put it on the screen. And then Keke Palmer plays the sister, and Keke Palmer's character is not feeling Lawrence at all. She's looking like, like that type of energy when she sees him. And he gets to hold the baby. She names the baby Elijah. I think his middle name is Mustafa, I want to say, or something like that. But it seems that Lawrence was not included in this baby selection, like name selection process, and he's kind of like about it. But I think she does give him his last name, so I guess that's a win. And then he does not stay with her at the hospital. He goes and stays at Chad's house, and you see him kind of complaining and saying like she doesn't really include him in anything. And he's really like annoyed at that. And Chad gives his usual Chad advice. And then we go to the next scene. And I mean, really the bulk of this episode, what it is showing us is that Lawrence and Condola are living very two different lives in terms of this being both new parents. Where Lawrence is living his best San Francisco life. Like I said, he has a very nice job and a very nice loft. He is having sex, staying up late, just like I said, living life like it's golden. Condola is there, at home, sleeping on the couch so she could be close to the baby, and and having to like be at this baby's beck and call because he is a newborn baby, and newborn babies are a lot. And then there's some times where Lawrence is flaking out on her or saying he's gonna be late. Even I think her and her sister were supposed to do something together, and Lawrence ends up bailing. And so while we give Condola a lot of crap, simply because she kind of is the one who got in the way of our Lawrence and Issa reunion, Lawrence is not doing what he's supposed to do at this point. She is not the villain in the situation. And anyone that thinks she's the villain in the situation, you need to reevaluate yourself. Because yes, she's being controlling in the sense that she's taking charge of like the baby and being very selective in who the baby sees, and and all these things about the baby. But at the same time, like, Lawrence is kind of being a part-time and like being a parent at his own convenience. And so you have to understand why Condola is very much reserved and not really taking Lawrence's pleas for being a father very seriously, because he's really not taking this a very hands-on approach to this parenting thing at all. And then, we have everything kind of comes because they have a christening. She is the one that picks the christening, like the priest and the church and all that. And then like Lawrence's family, like she's not here for Lawrence's family. It feels like that weird uncle. But there was that. And then, everything kind of comes to a climax when they go to Tiffany's baby's first birthday party, and which this was such a cute little scene in terms of Kelly. Kelly and the baby have matching tuxedos because she is the godmother, of course. And I love the interaction that Kelly and Lawrence has, because Lawrence is like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And she's saying, she's doing great. And she's talking about the fact that she's she gave up drinking, which is very interesting. And I'm telling you, I need a Kelly episode like yesterday. But yeah, so, but then he also goes on to ask, how is everyone else, insinuating, I'm assuming, Issa. And, she's like, everyone around me is limitless, thriving in abundance. And I'm like, yes, Kelly, what a great response. We all need a Kelly in our lives that's going to respond to our exes like that. But in this situation, or at this party, what ends up happening is Lawrence ends up feeding the baby some type of solid food that he has not been introduced to yet. And he tells Condola about it, and Condola's upset because at this point, you don't really know what the baby is allergic to. You don't want to just, be quick to introduce him to things. But if he was in the baby's life like that, he would know that. And so they get in an argument because he's like, you never let me, like, you don't think I can handle, like, taking care of my own child. You're very, like, you're kind of controlling, blah, blah, blah. And then Tiffany's husband, pulls Lawrence to the side and is like, you can't co-parent like this. This cannot go on. It's not good for the baby. It's not good for you. Like, what are you doing? And he's just like, she just never listens to me, da 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 da. And Derek's like, me and Tiffany had our issues when we first, had our baby, but we worked through them. We gotta work together. It's a team, blah, 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 blah. And Lawrence is like, well, that's easy for you to say because you're married. This is not the same thing. Yada, 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 right? And then things just get even worse when towards like the end of the episode, Lawrence is supposed to keep the baby overnight. And then he ends up coming late. And, the baby is fussy when Lawrence gets there. And Condola's like, you know what? I think he should stay with me. And Lawrence is upset. And then they get into a huge heated argument. And basically it ends with Condola kicking Lawrence out. And then Lawrence goes home, and then he's sitting there in his loft and looking at the crib that he put up, even though I don't know when that baby's finna stay in that crib. But then he calls Condola, apologizes, and I'm assuming they are agreeing that this cannot go on the way it's going, and we gotta do better for the baby. For baby Ja, even though I don't know. The nickname Eli was right there. Why Ja? That's just a check. Because when I think about Ja, I think about Jesus. Also, I think about Ja Rule. Like, why is the nickname? Like, that's whatever. neither here nor there. Moral of the story is, right? Like I said, Lawrence is the guy that where he could be well-meaning in situations, he just don't be trying. He didn't try in his relationship with Issa, and he's not trying with this baby. And that's just what it is. It's just like, yes, like I said with Condola, I don't understand how she thought she didn't want to marry Lawrence or saw no type of long-term future with him, but you chose to have a baby by him. Why? That makes no sense. It's like, I mean, maybe, I mean, I think it was because she wanted to have a baby and like whatever, but like, you know, it's just like, you know, you gotta, like, she was so willing to like not have this man in her life anymore, but it's just like, you know, that's just weird to me. You know, like you could have easily just, you know, waited on life and found another man and easily had a baby with him. Like, why would you do that? But, you know, you had the babe. Like I said, Lawrence did say he was going to be a parent. He wanted to be in the kid's life. And like I said, you can't half-ass parenting. You can't choose. You can't wake up and say, I want to be a parent today. Like, that's not how the world works. And that's how Lawrence is moving because, frankly, Lawrence should have never taken that job. Like, the moment he knew that Condola was pregnant, that dream of that job got to go. Because, like, that jobs will always be there. But, like, the first few months of your kid's life is never going to happen again unless you have another child. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, why are you out on dates and you're supposed to be having a kid with somebody? Like, and I'm not saying he had to go back with Condola and play house because that's not good either. But what I'm saying is, like, you should be like close enough to the hospital where your kid's supposed to be born at, so in the event that your baby mom is in labor, you can just go. And like I said, even when you should be at the hospital, laying up in the hospital with your baby, like, what are we doing? And even those first few nights, like the fact that Condola had to do all of that alone is ridiculous. And that's where I'm like, yeah, Mr. Lawrence, sir, like, yeah, she can be over, like, a little bit controlled, but, like, you have to understand why, because you're just picking and choosing when you want to be a parent, and that's just simply not how parenting works, especially in those, like, initial years. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, so I mean, that was basically the episode. Very, you know, pretty interesting. Like I said, we have been very, very, very interested to see what Miss Condola was gonna give. And like I said, I'm on Condola's side with this one. Like I said, Lauren should have tried harder. Period. If you care, you want to be a parent, you should, like, even when she kicked you out, like, you still shouldn't have went home. Like, you should have at least, like, stayed in a hotel or something and see if you could talk to her the next day or something. You know what I mean? But, you know, like I said, Team Condola on that one, because you can't half-ass parenting, like I said. And aren't we glad our good sis Issa is not in this ghetto mess here? Aren't we glad? Like, imagine. Like, we had to go through it with Miss Melody on the game, and that was just horrible. So I'm glad that the Insecure writers did not decide to go that route, because, like, I don't want to see it. I want to see Issa become a mom on her own terms and stuff like that, and not have anything to do with that. So yeah, so that was Pressure. Okay. So the next episode was called Faulty Okay, and boy, are we in for a ride. Okay, so Faulty Okay. So it starts off with Issa, Molly, and Kelly, and they're going to the beach for a event for Nathan. This is about a week after the not last episode, but the episode before last. So that's where we are in the timeline. And of course, there is some weird energy, or like Issa's feeling a bit anxious to see Nathan again, because the last time she saw him, he was in her bed and she was crying her eyes out in this man's lap, and he thought he was gonna get some booty or something. You know what I mean? And so she's feeling real confused, because not only did she cry in front of this man, but he also just kind of left in the middle of the night without explaining anything. So it's like, what's it giving? So, but they go, and I think this is an event. I think this is the event that him and Issa were discussing earlier in a couple episodes ago. So it's for his job. He's a barber, and I believe they're celebrating like their year anniversary or something like that for the barber shop. So they come to the beach, and Issa starts to talk to Nathan, and it is hella awkward. And that's what I love. The fact that obviously Issa has grown and glowed up so much in season 1, but the one thing that will never, escape her is the fact that she is awkward. And I love that. And she's trying so hard to, be funny and make casual conversation with Nathan, but it is simply just not working. She's bombing. But it's just awkward energy. And then Molly is on this mission to, find a guy to sleep with, which is like so interesting. I mean, I feel like Molly has been like that, but it feels like she's taking a more active approach this season. And I like the energy. The energy is fun. I also like seeing her and like Kelly's interactions. This episode was very, very, very cute and fun because I feel like we don't see that often. It's always like Molly, Issa, and then Molly and Issa and Kelly and Tiffany. It's not really much, them like, in separation. But like I said, Issa's whole thing is to try to see where Nathan's head's at after this situation. So that's what she's mostly thinking about. While Molly is thinking about what man is she got her sights on, or who has their sights on Molly, really. But this was a fun episode. So what happened? So then Molly and Kelly go play a game of spades with a couple of Nathan's friends. Issa sits and watch because Issa doesn't know how to play spades, and so I don't either. It's not my fault though. Do not take my black card away just yet, because let me tell you something. I am a Caribbean American, meaning that my mother is from Jamaica and my dad is American, but my grandfather's side of the family is from Trinidad, and he was practically raised Trinidad. Like, you know what I mean? Right, he was practically raised with my grandfather's side of the family. So Caribbean folks do not play spades. That is a very much Black American thing. Caribbeans play dominoes. So I don't know nothing about no spades. I didn't learn about spades until I got to college. And every time I said I didn't know how to play spades, exactly what happened to Issa, where they laughed at her and was like, you're grown, like, that's tough. That's exactly what happened to me literally anytime I say I don't know how to play spades. Like, I never felt so seen in a random, like, scene in a television show in my life. But yeah. So then I think Issa and Nathan have a conversation again. Like, once again, still very awkward, very weird. Yeah, that was that. And then what ends up happening was an earthquake. An earthquake happens, and they have to move locations. So they move to another location, and Issa's in one car, Nathan's in another car, and we see two different conversations happening. With Nathan, he's talking to his two guy friends, and he's explaining what happened and saying, like, she invited him over, and he thought that, they were going to sleep together or something. And then she ends up crying, and he feels like he's being friend zoned, and that Issa has hot and cold type of energy, and he's confused. And his friends are like, well, you give off friend zoney type of vibes. And side note, I really don't like the term friend zone, because it feels like guys, like, number one, just because you and a woman are friends and you're showing interest in dating her, that does not mean that she has to date you. Like, so sorry about it. Like, there are so many men who befriend women under the guise that they hope that one day they'll get to sleep with them or date them, and then think they're getting friend zoned because the woman is treating them like a friend, even though that's how they presented themselves in the beginning. Like, it's giving deceitful. Like, if you want to date her, then date her and approach her that way. But don't try to be her friend and then get mad when she treats you like a friend. And especially Nathan has a lot of nerve. And even though I am Team Nathan 100%, Nathan doesn't, I don't feel like he understands that you and Issa had a thing going and you completely ghosted her. Granted, you had a valid reason because you were going through a mental health situation, but you should have communicated that with her, and instead you just disappeared. And like I said, now that he's been doing right by her since, but once again, it does not entitle you to anything. You know what I mean? And, it was very clear that Issa was looking for a different type of intimacy that night, and you just did not offer that to her. And that's kind of what the friends were explaining to him. Like, it was very clear that she trusted you to be that guy for her, and you just abandoned her, essentially. It definitely seems that Nathan marinated on that conversation. And then you have Issa in her car, and she's, thinking about how should she approach Nathan and figure out what the hell happened. And she's then thinking maybe that Nathan and the female barber have something going on, because they were being a little flirty, touchy at the beach. And Molly immediately asked her, because the girl was in the cab with them, and the girl's like, no, that's my brother, or whatever, like that. And so I was like, all right, Molly. But, she's like, if that's what you want, you should tell him how you feel, whatever. They get to the second location. We're introduced to Nathan's cousin and his cousin's wife. And immediately you can see there's tension between Nathan and the wife. And at first I thought, like, did they used to sleep together or something? Like, what's the giving? Like, it's something is something. Some vibes are off. But we learned that, like, this was a cousin that Nathan was staying with for a little bit. I think when he first moved to LA or something like that. And it seems that he's very close to this cousin. He has a lot of fond memories of the cousin, and they're talking about, growing up in Houston together and all these things. And we're learning a little bit more about Nathan and his life before we knew him in the show. And, it's really cute, and especially Issa's reaction. She's just like grinning from ear to ear, honey. She is just cheesing, okay? She is so interested in learning about this man, okay? But they're kind of like messing with Nathan a little bit, calling him light-skinned, and saying that he's a little flighty. Especially the cousin's wife makes this joke, and like Nathan was completely not feeling it at all. And you can see that Issa quickly tries to save the conversation and tries to, be on Nathan's side in that moment, and say, it was because of him coming to LA that she got to, be inspired to make her block party and essentially start her business. But I loved it about Issa. Issa's always going to try to defend her friends when they're in hot water. I remember I told y'all a couple episodes when I was watching season 1, and even when her and Molly were beefing, when Kelly and Tiffany were trying to come for Molly and crack jokes, Issa came and quickly defended her friend. So that's one thing I love and admire about Issa D's character, is the fact that she is going to defend the people that she cares about. And it's very clear that she cares about Nathan a great deal. They did briefly have a conversation about what happened. But it's kind of like, oh, are we still friends kind of thing? And they're like, yeah, we're still friends. I'm not sure if that conversation happened at this bar or happened on the beach. I think it happened on the beach, though. It was just a very weird conversation. It was very awkward. But they basically said, oh, like, we shouldn't have, I shouldn't have invited you over. He said he shouldn't have kissed her, and that they should just be friends. They go to this next location, which is a club now. And, as I told y'all, there were 2 men competing for Molly's attention, and one of them won. And this guy he can only get one person in the club or whatever, and he lets Molly go in with him. And the rest of them have to sit outside and wait, I guess, to get in or something. And while this is going on, Nathan, after some time has passed and they're waiting in line for a while, Nathan's cousin decides to leave, and he's like, oh, where are you going? He says he's going home, and he's like, oh, you don't have to leave. Like, why are you leaving? Like, is it your wife? Is your wife forced you to go home? And he's like, no, you guys should really talk. And he's like, why? Because Nathan believes that it is, Nathan got kicked out of his cousin's home when he was living with them, and he believes that it was the cousin's wife. That's why he got kicked out, when in actuality the cousin confesses that it was him the whole time, because he felt that, he was putting his family in danger because he kept leaving, at random hours of the night, not locking the door. He was just being very, like, unstable. And so he said it ultimately was his decision, but his wife told him to tell Nathan that it was the wife's decision, so that there's no static. But, now we're here. So that kind of makes Nathan feel some kind of way because that was a bomb dropped. He takes a walk and Issa, comes behind him and asks him what's up. But he explains that when he was living with his cousin, he was going through a manic episode because, as we know, Nathan does have bipolar disorder. But he said at this time he did not know that he had bipolar disorder. So he was behaving in an erratic way because he was not, he didn't know that he had that, that he was dealing with mental illness. And he hasn't told his cousins about it either. And so he feels like, oh, like they're always just going to see me that way no matter what. So what's the point in telling them? And then he goes and says, just like how you always see me the same. And Issa, Issa's like, no, I don't. I don't want to be your friend. She says, I don't want to be just your friend, Nathan. I want to be more than friends. And he's like, I don't want to be your friend either. I mean, he already told her that. But, it's a great day to be Team Nathan. He had us in the first half. I'm not going to lie to you. But he came back. And now we like, what is it, 1-1? 1-1, Team Nathan, okay? And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because I told you I'm Team Nathan. No, Issa does not smile as wide with anybody else, not with Daniel and not with Lawrence, the way that she smiled with that man. And I would smile too because Nathan is a fine man. That's a fine man. Oh, also it was like a side note of this episode. Crenshaw, who was played by the beautiful Kofi Siriboe, and we met a couple of episodes ago, is talking cash crazy about Issa on the internet and saying that she's a sellout. And Issa kind of in the background, or like it's kind of happening while all the events of the episode's happening, and she's talking to her assistant, trying to figure out how to do damage control, because if this gets bad, it's going to be very difficult for Issa to find any more local clientele ever again. Because if somebody's calling you a sellout and your whole thing is to get local talent, it's going to be difficult. So Crenshaw is causing some problems, and we probably will see the events of that unfold in future episodes. Even though, I don't know, like I have a feeling that something going to happen with her and Crenshaw. Like, I don't know. I feel like we cannot completely celebrate because we're still, midway through the season now. We got about, maybe 3 or 4 more episodes left. I don't know if they're going to do 10 episodes or 8 episodes this season. Not quite sure. But we have still a good bit to go. It's too soon to say that Issa and Nathan's going to be end game. I feel like it's not going to be that easy. It's not. I feel it. Crenshaw's giving me enemies to lovers. It's giving enemies to lovers. Because, see, the fact that we still got to deal with him means that there's more business to be done. They're going to sleep together. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm just thinking too much and I've watched too much dramatic TV. I don't know. Like I said, it's always going to be Nathan for me. It's Nathan. I just want it to be done here, but I just know it's not. It's not Lawrence, and I hope it's not. Because, like I said, after this last episode, he got to be a daddy. He need to focus on being a daddy and leave Issa out of it. Okay? But, yeah, so that was Pressure Okay and Faulty Okay. 2 pretty good episodes. Like I said, a lot of stuff happened between the 2 episodes. Team Nathan is up. Team Lawrence is just hanging up, guys. It's not looking good for y'all at all, okay? Team Daniel's non-existent because that nigga's not coming back. But like I said, Crenshaw and Issa could have a Tingwaning. I don't know. You never know in the world of Insecure. But y'all let me know what you guys think about these 2 episodes. What are your predictions? Are you Team Nathan or not? Are you excited? What do you think is going to happen in these next couple of episodes? Will Lawrence make a comeback? Will, him and Condola get it together? Will Molly find somebody? Are we going to get a Kelly episode? So many questions that need answers, but let me know your thoughts, your grievances, your likes, your dislikes, all of that down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll definitely see y'all in my next one. Peace out, y'all.